Hello and welcome to Carved in Stone, where I pick a topic and select my Mount Rushmore of said topic. So, my top four. But I will mention more than four selections. Lists, of course, are subjective, and four is narrowing it down quite a bit, so I'll explain why some may fall just short of the mountain. I'm your host, Shawn Chabam, and on today's episode, I'm going to be giving you my wrestling Mount Rushmore. Now, before I get into the four heads I've selected, I want to explain a few things. Actually, I'm going to pivot here. It's my WWE Mount Rushmore. But let me explain why I chose who I chose and why you won't be hearing some names that you probably think are slam dunks. I watched wrestling for a very specific time frame. I was watching hardcore from about WrestleMania 3 to WrestleMania 10. I was a WWF, now E fan, and nothing else. I was aware of WCW, but I almost never tuned into it. So you're not going to see Sting or Flair, and due to the time that I stopped watching, you're also not going to hear Rock or Austin. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I know there are people who think some of those guys should make it easily. Another guy I'll just tell you up front who isn't on my list is The Undertaker. He was a huge star while I was watching, but I have four names I prefer over him. He, of course, if you refer to the time I was watching, he wasn't deep into the streak yet, and the last Mania I watched him compete in while I was a hardcore fan was 9 against Giant Gonzalez, and that match was one of Taker's worst, if not his worst. Certainly his worst WrestleMania match. Then he didn't wrestle at 10, so, by the time I was phasing out, he wasn't even on the WrestleMania scene. By the way, I do watch WrestleMania every year, even today, but I'm sticking with my time frame of when I was most into it. Think 87 to early 94. One omission that you might find glaring today would be Andre the Giant. If you remember the years that I was watching, about 87 to 94, I would say that Andre was on a steep decline because of his failing health at that point. So when I was watching him, he wasn't as great as he used to be. This isn't no disrespect to Andre the Giant, but in my time period, he does not make the top four. My first honoree, which should not come as any shock to anyone listening, is Hulk Hogan. I know he wasn't the best in-ring performer, but he had the gimmick that made you feel like his matches were the most important thing happening in the world at that moment. He made your blood boil with rage, the way he'd speak about the heels and how they were out to destroy Hulkamania. Now, he did have better moves than a lot of people realize. If you look up some of his work in Japan, he had ability. It just wasn't what Vince McMahon wanted in the WWE. He wanted Hogan to take a beating, hulk up, drop the leg, put his hand to his ear, and pose. And if it sounds like I'm putting him down, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. Hulk Hogan did more for wrestling than anyone. Ever. He made wrestling mainstream. He was in cartoons, he was in music videos, he was in movies. He had an insane amount of merch. There was the Rock and Wrestling connection. That was just before the time frame I mentioned at the start of the show, but I did have a VHS of The War to Settle the Score, which was a huge success on MTV. Hulk Hogan and Rowdy Roddy Piper were the main combatants in that one. Piper, one of the guys who unfortunately had to be left off my list. I can hear you groaning from the future. Hey, there's only 4 spots. Some damn fine wrestlers have to get left off. But back to Hogan, even though his in-ring work could have been better in WWE, he managed to have a ton of iconic moments. Who can forget him slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3? How about the Mega Powers exploding on Saturday night's main event and then the match at WrestleMania 5? WrestleMania 6, the Ultimate Challenge against the Ultimate Warrior. Looking back, maybe it wasn't the best match, but go back and watch that and just watch the crowd. They had them eating out of the palms of their hands. Earthquake squashing Hogan on the Brother Love show, kids bawling their eyes out. You didn't see that kind of love and admiration for anyone else. One funny thing I want to say before I get to my second selection is that for as big a Hulkamaniac as I was, I kind of liked going back and watching matches that he lost. It was just so unexpected and so rare that it seemed kind of special when he was beaten. My favorite was when the Genius defeated Hogan via countout on Saturday night's main event. Nobody saw that one coming. There was outside interference, but heels almost always needed interference to win back then. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. It was hilarious. Not the kind of guy Hogan usually wrestles. The Genius was at one time a jobber known as Leaping Lanny Poffo. Lanny Poffo is his real name, the youngest son of Angela Poffo and younger brother of Randy Poffo, better known as Macho Man Randy Savage. And Randy Savage is also known as my next selection for the WWE Mount Rushmore. The Macho Man. Oh yeah, the madness is the cream of the crop. This guy could do it all. He could talk. He could wrestle. He could be a power wrestler. He could be a technical wrestler. He could be a high flyer. He was meticulous. He was intense. As a wrestler, I can't say a bad word about this guy. I realize he was a flawed person outside of the squared circle. Aren't we all? But as a wrestler, I don't think there's ever been anyone better. He came out on the short end of the stick during my all-time favorite match. That was between himself and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 3. He may not have always been acting, but he got the reaction he was supposed to when he made you absolutely hate his guts for the way he treated Elizabeth. And basically, he'd do anything for the business, like hold that ridiculous in-ring wedding while his real marriage was falling apart. And that, of course, started a fun storyline with Jake the Snake Roberts. One thing he liked to do, and this caused a lot of problems, particularly with veteran wrestlers, was he mapped out his matches. And when I say he mapped them out, I mean he would script it out page by page, expecting his counterpart to know the match inside and out like he did by the time they got to the ring. I don't remember hearing if that was a problem against Ric Flair, but I know Flair liked to call spots in the ring, so it could have been. But whatever happened there, Savage and Flair put on a dynamite show at WrestleMania 8. I think WrestleMania 8 in general is extremely underrated, at least the first half of the show. I think the botched main event between Sid and Hogan made people forget how good some of the other matches on the card were. But back to Macho. He had not one, but two critically acclaimed matches against the Ultimate Warrior of all people, which was no easy feat. WrestleMania 7, in my opinion, Warrior's best match in a landslide. Their SummerSlam 92 match at Wembley was good too. Not as good as the Mania match. Supposedly that one was career-ending, but still pretty good, especially for the Ultimate Warrior. Savage had feuds with some of the biggest names in wrestling: Hogan, Warrior, Steamboat, Flair, Roberts, Dusty Rhodes, George the Animal Steele, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. He main evented a ton of pay-per-views and never left you feeling unsatisfied. One thing I really wish Savage would have gotten in his career is one pinfall on Hulk Hogan. I can't think of any competitor who deserved it more, and it should have been clean. I mean, Jacques Rougeau got a clean pinfall on Hogan. It did happen on rare occasion. People like to say Hogan never put anyone over. That's not entirely true, but he was very selective. Savage did have some count-out wins against Hulk, and maybe a DQ, I'm not sure on that one, but I know never a pin. And the victories Macho did get against Hulk weren't in the biggest spots. They were mainly house shows. It's still kind of funny to me that Lanny got the win on Saturday night's main event, and you have to search hard to find a win by Randy over Hogan. Randy, by the way, was more apt to put folks over than a lot of stars at the time. In fact, according to his brother, he wanted to do a program with my next selection. He saw something in this guy. Savage didn't want to win. He wanted to help catapult this man into stardom. They did wrestle before, but he wanted to do something big with this guy. Without further ado, we have one half of my all-time favorite tag team, the Heartbreak Kid, the Showstopper, Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels. The man who intimidated his former tag team partner so much that Marty Jannetty once leaped out a barbershop window to get away from Michaels in an act of cowardice. Michaels was not a world champion while I was watching. He was Intercontinental Champion for a while. He was damn near a tag team champion. He was supposed to be a tag team champion. The Rockers defeated the Hart Foundation for the tag belts in a match that was supposed to air on Saturday night's main event, but the top rope broke and Vince McMahon decided not to air the match and then act like it never happened. And eventually he changed his mind about giving the Rockers the belt. I'm not sure if there were contract disputes there, but it was never televised, and the Rockers' reign was never acknowledged. And I'm still bitter about it. I loved the Rockers. I really feel they should have had a title run. They were as over as could be. They were so in sync with what each other was doing. It was insane. So that was why I became a Shawn Michaels fan. But what kept me a fan was his killer singles work. After he turned heel, they eventually teamed him up with a manager, Sensational Sherry. After Sherry took him under her wing, Shawn learned how to generate heat on his own, and there was no need for Sherry anymore. Eventually, Diesel would come in, and I think those who continued watching after I was gone probably have some opinions about that. WrestleMania 10, the ladder match with Razor Ramon, unreal. One of the best matches you'll ever see. Do yourself a favor and rewatch it now. I know this has been told a million times, but at the WrestleMania, Michaels and Razor went over their time limit. Apparently, Randy Savage tore into them in the dressing room. Savage was particularly upset that a 10-man tag had to be cut from the show to make up for Michaels and Razor going over their allotted time, and those guys didn't get to work Mania. I'll tell you this, though, I don't know how many people would turn back time to get the 10-man tag, which did end up happening on Monday Night Raw. The ladder match was iconic and one of the best matches you can watch. Before I reveal my fourth and final pick, I want to say this. My all-time favorite wrestler, I recently decided that I had to take him off of my Mount Rushmore, and here's why. My all-time favorite wrestler is Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig. I loved his gimmick, his look, his moves, his promos, those vignettes where he would throw the football to himself and then run 50 yards and catch it. They were hilarious. I loved the way he threw his towel behind his back and caught it, and how he never missed when he spit out his gum and smacked it into the stands. And so Mr. Perfect was always the wild card on my Mount Rushmore. I never thought he was the GOAT. That honor goes to Randy Savage, as I mentioned earlier. But I think his gimmick, Perfect's that is, really resonated with me as the perfect wrestling gimmick. Now, recently, for an upcoming episode, I was putting together my candidates for the Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania matches, and there were three names that kept coming up over and over again. Two of them were already revealed, that's Savage and Michaels, and the third, replacing Perfect, which probably won't come as a shock to many, is Bret the Hitman Hart. Like Michaels, he started out as a tag wrestler in WWE with Jim the Anvil Neidhart as a member of the Hart Foundation. He then transitioned to an abnormally successful singles wrestler. He didn't have the power of Savage or Hogan or the high-flying maneuvers of Michaels or even his brother Owen, but everything he did was so precise, and he made everyone he wrestled look like $1,000,000. He could put on a match that made you believe he could defeat a Yokozuna or a Bam Bam Bigelow. He made you believe a monster like Yokozuna actually needed outside interference to win at WrestleMania 9. We won't get into what happened after that match, as it's been discussed and debated ad nauseum. But growing up, I wasn't a huge Bret Hart fan, which might be why he usually didn't make my Mount Rushmore until recently. The reason I wasn't a huge fan was mainly because his mic skills were quite lacking. Looking at clips on YouTube, he definitely got better as time went on, but at that time I wasn't watching WWE. I never remember getting all that excited for a Bret Hart match. Despite not being on Bret's level as far as technical wrestling goes, I was always pumped up for a Hulk Hogan match. Hogan made every match seem like the most important match in history, regardless of who his opponent was. Bret Hart couldn't do that prior to the match, but by God, if you didn't enjoy the hell out of Bret's matches when the bell rang. So Bret took over perfect spot on my WWE Mount Rushmore. Perfect. Never really had a great WrestleMania match. His best match, in my opinion, was at SummerSlam 91, and probably his second best match was at King of the Ring 93. Both of those were against none other than Bret the Hitman Hart. So the excellence of execution rounds out my WWE Mount Rushmore. One thing I didn't mention was his kick-ass entrance music. So, quick shout out there. All right, well, that wraps up this episode of Carved in Stone. Quick reminder of my WWE Mount Rushmore: Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart. I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to see you next time. Go Birds!